Live video, live video, live video, live video. Just realized I forgot to turn on my highlight again. So it's so interesting. I feel like I'm speaking to creation today, to God. Nice to see you both. And I had two things happen yesterday that really laid out the ability for me to have this conversation this morning. One is that I have a group that Dr. Heather Hunt put together who are reading the second book of a series called The Mind of Creation, You as the Mind of Creation. And we were doing the chapter on sent intelligence. And I got to do something I never got to do. And that's my hello. I realized something. Now you have to remember I'm a seer and a mystic. So we pay attention to things in a way that probably other people don't necessarily do that. So in this chapter, I wrote that everybody read last night, I talk about when I got introduced to multidimensionality. And it was actually when I was 16 years old. And I watched myself. I was odd already. I heard a voice because when you're young, you're unfiltered. I had a lot of what they call outside nightmares, like seeing things crawl through my window in the second story of my parents' home. So there's kind of it's almost embarrassing to say it, but there's almost a legitimacy to my psychicness because from a very early age, my family and myself were having to deal with it. And I think that it wasn't really hell to be psychic. It was more hell to be crazy. So this one time I saw myself walking in front of myself. Good morning. And I also turned around or looked behind me, and I was following me. And out of that, I got to meet this extraordinary psychiatrist who didn't believe in giving people drugs, who was the first person that ever had a conversation with me about multidimensionality. But it wasn't until we were all reading that document last night, that chapter, that I really realized that it had set a marker for me, that my sanity, my ability to know myself as sane and not crazy, literally came out of multiple conversations that Dr. White and I had about how the sense of personhood can exist in more than one, I would say in my words now, playing field, but he actually said in more than one psychology. And I'd actually forgotten about that until this morning when I was reflecting on how well received the chapter was. And I remembered, because I have a fairly blank about all the conversations that we had, but I remembered he did use that term. Oh, it's good to see you, Madeline. And that term was that it was possible to carry several different kinds of psychology. Isn't that a mind twister? I don't know if we just think there's one kind or, but it was a mind twister for me in a really great way. Because when I was in altered states, different states of experience, I could identify myself differently. It was not only a different kind of mind I had, but it was a different kind of being I had. And I very naturally, because I had good coaching, I would say, I very naturally just began to delineate. It wasn't like it wasn't to say, Gail, you made it, yay. It wasn't that, it wasn't forced, like I hear people identify different aspects of their personality. This was natural. This was, when I was in the psychology of the guardian, it was a very different psychology than when I was in the psychology of Diane Muriel Spoden, the daughter of my family. And then as I matured, or this ability I have matured me, then I never call myself, I never had like the thought about the psychology of a magi. I did, however, develop the psychology of a mystic. So I'm very curious if someone would look up the word psychology, which will say the study of psychology. So see if you can get a little bit past that, and post while I'm talking. Praline usually does this, so you might want to wait for her. But if she isn't able to get to it because of her bandwidth in Africa, then maybe somebody else can. Maybe Gail, and she could kibitz or KO. But the point is that I got so excited about that I'd forgotten that statement, and that you know how when you hit this truth, it's not like truth like, makes wars or makes people separate from each other, or you defend and protect your truth. It's like something that just lights you up. It just lights you up. You can't explain it, but somehow it anchors things right. It anchors things in a more potent, a more, wow, my past is coming up on our visitation today. This is so great. Hi, honey. Tara, I still have memory of you running across the Irish Hills. This is so fun. So fun. Actually, next Friday is my birthday, and Tara has a May birthday too. Are we on the same day? Oh, her birthday today. That's right. That's right. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, my beloved Tara. Happy birthday to you. And many more. And come next week, and we can celebrate mine next week. Us May babies. I get chills everywhere. So it's a perfect conversation for you today. So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing a comment that defines psychology. And I just could wrap my arms around you and rock you and hold you forever. In kind of a way, I'm her substitute mama. Wow, you guys, we're making the planet rock and roll. It's beautiful. So back to my topic, inclusive of all conversations. Mind and behavior, is that, can you click the see more, Praline? It is so amazing to me. Imagine that when I was 16, I had a psychiatrist whom Papa Kent, my minister, got for me, that explained to me that you can have a sense of self that has a different kind of psychology. You can have more than one. So it's very exciting to me that let me see, I left out, it's kind of like I left out a bridge. Let me try to bridge what I want to say. Um, it's just so exciting. I really want us to digest this. It's a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift. It's a shift in our own psyche, to say it literally, that can really have us start to explore these aspects of self that don't have a place in the world we were born into, or it's not easy for them to have a place, and that these aspects of self or of the soul can have their own psychology. In other words, their own mind and how it works and how it behaves. I just wanted to erode the limited spectrum of human definition we were born into, because human beings are magical. Oh, great. All of you are going for it. Yes, that's the deal. We're imprinting the field. We're going for it. We're not going to let the world we're swimming in, that's collapsing all around us, take us down at a psychological level. That's the point. That's the point. Psychological level is the soul's level, with its intelligence and different mindsets that we have that behave differently and work differently. And as a mystic and a seer, I could be a mystic and a seer, and the psychology of the mystic, the psychology of the seer, and the psychology of being the daughter of my parents, and the mother of my children, and the lover of my man. Are we getting this? Is something pulling apart? Is something pulling apart with this? Because this single identity that's only shaped to try to fit into the society that we were born into is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Who cares if it's wrong or right? It's just plain ridiculous. I made this new tea today. It's turmeric. My favorite tea, of course, I won't remember the name of it now. It's harvested. It's harvested in another country. I can't remember it now, but I'll get to it in a second. It's my favorite tea. It's turmeric, cinnamon, and wild tazo, wild sweet orange. But I can't remember the name of the other one. So the bridge. So that's exciting enough to me that I remembered that, because what's been rising just powerfully is this, even when I try to say the words now, they're not broad or deep, or they're not big enough. I'm so sorry. It's like trying to talk about God and or heaven or the universe. I'm a bit challenged at the moment, but the spirit of it's in there. So let me make sure that spirit is strong and that I relay it strongly. So for me, from a very young age, 19, I think that's the first time I organized myself. And I organized myself while I was working with Dr. White. Like, a lot of his conversation was literally about how did I think? How did I perceive? What was real for me? I mean, he just pulled apart. He never tried to get me back into functioning in a proper manner with the society I'd born into. He was exploring me and having me explore myself at a level of psychology, the study of the psyche, the study of the mind of my psyche, and how it actually behaved. Very different than good behavior, bad behavior, inappropriate behavior. Your mind shouldn't work that way. How am I doing? I feel it in my gut. I feel like I'm getting this transmission across in my gut. So I hope so, because I'm ready to cry. Maybe I'll just cry, because it's so exciting. And even if you can't grasp everything I'm saying, I want you to listen. through the ears of a mystic today, through the ears of someone who was born to pay attention to the consciousness of humanity, like a mother and her children. But please don't attack me with that. But like a mother, it's that deep for me. And so as I was he helped me unpack myself and the variants of psychology that my mind was capable of, and that I had registers for, and a sense of behavior and personhood that was distinct from the world I'd been born into, particularly the daughter of my family. And I entered the phenomena of multidimensional reality, because I discovered, particularly when I was in Ireland, so An Irish Tale of a Modern Mystic. It's on Amazon. I strongly recommend it at this time to read. I have it too, if you want me to sign it and send to you. Here where I am, you just have to go on my website and order it. But it's such a relevant, sweet book at this time. And Chris Tara was there with me, and it's just so amazing to me. So there's no separation between different senses of self, have different psychologies. Or we could say different aspects of our soul has different selves with different psychologies. And that means behavior and different kinds of minds. So I can just keep reinforcing so you don't get collapsed into the word psychology, because we're unpacking it. We're giving it back its right place right now, not how it's been used. But you can't separate multidimensionality and the psychology of the soul. You can't separate them. Are we ready? Are we going to go for this? Are we going to work our minds on this? Please promise me you're working your mind on this. You're letting yourself think. You're pressing in to the organized way that you've been forced to think, and you're thinking outside the box. And I'd like to think outside the box at a level that we get ourselves outside the box today, especially when there's something to gain access to that's accessible. So multidimensionality, for us to engage with our multidimensional nature, it has different senses of self. Now I'm going to get this wrong, but it could have different senses of self with different kinds of experiences at every level. So you know how when you make the statement, I think I'm more than this, you are. And then it dribbles away, it fades away up until now for a lot of people, because these multidimensional matrices had not restored themselves. And we had not been craving ourselves so much that we were part of the juice of the restoration. There's nothing outside of us. We're the juice of creation itself. And that juice is very, very potent when it craves. And we've been in a society, a part of society, at a planetary level that has been craving itself back. And we're in that, when the doctor tells you, for the most part, it goes this way, tells you that you're pregnant and you just are elated, you just can't stand it, it's so yummy and gorgeous. We're like right there, where Tantra's going to tell you we're pregnant. And we're pregnant with ourself. And that our self is a multidimensional nature, and that we don't really have to try to figure it out, as long as we can just pay attention to that we're more, that we're more, and that then we do what Dr. White did with me, and which he had me analyze myself, not through the paradigm of psychology that's what's right and what's wrong and what fits and doesn't fit, but through the study of your own psyche, of your own sense of self. And like you're laying it out like a magnificent puzzle, things you love, things that seem real to you, getting it out of the opinion domain or getting it out of even the truth domain, and just laying it out almost like a what if. You know, what if there is something about me? I'm not talking about me. This is imagination. What if there is something about me that is connected to something that if I just stay connected to that, maybe it can come back in here as part of this world. That's a short version. So this chapter, it was chapter 12, about sentient intelligence, because that's really what we're talking about. You could say the intelligence of our shared soul is sentient, of all life is sentient. And so what happens is that your psyche, your soul consciousness, it begins to branch out, not as a personality. Now, I'm going to make a distinction. For me, there's a difference in personality and persona. For me, personality is something we could identify ourselves at. And for me, persona is a persona that begins to, I can see, begins to emerge through you. And I begin to tend to it. A different aspect of self begins to emerge through you, and like in a consult or an engagement or an event, I begin to tend to it, and because it's rising, and I don't really ever have to tell the person, because there's a terrible mechanistic challenge in our thinking apparatus around personal identification. It's still having to judge itself against the parameters of reality that seem to be the most dominant. So last night when I came on the screen and Zoom and everybody's reading this chapter, I was flooded by this recognition that simply said it was what was present in the field was the multidimensionality nature of what we are as an aspect of creation. And then to hear the people be that listening. Now, this is tricky, not that they could say it or not that they could identify it, or it was in the air. You could hear this, someone even said there was this nourishment. There was this nourishment as if this realm of consciousnesses of which we are a part, that we're back with us again, sort of like Peter Pan in his shadow. It was exquisite. And I had found this particular document because I had written a whole nother thing on sentient intelligence. But I wanted this document that I had started to write, and because I felt this huge pull I realized that there's no access to multidimensional, or in general, our multidimensional nature without sentient intelligence, like sensing something, sensations of something, dreams of something. But I also realized that we were on the border, or we had just landed into the ability for human beings to recognize themselves differently. You have no idea. You have no idea how powerful this is. And it's always tricky for me when I'm in these calls, any calls now, actually, because I'm not not going to give you a method. I'm telling you what's rising. I'm a seer, you know? And I'm telling you it's rising. I'm even telling you probably don't have to do anything about it. It's just that human beings have this interesting trait, which I think is their joy, is part of their joy. And I think, and it's called self-recognition. You know, everybody's gone after humans have gone after themselves, I guess you'd say, about how you aren't supposed to pay attention to yourself. You're supposed to give your life to others. You're supposed to give your life to a cause, a mission, a purpose, or in some cases, like North Korea, you give your life to the supreme commander, which is you give your life to some ideology. But truthfully, you have no idea how that falls into ashes when a human being recognizes themselves as themselves. It just melts away. The ludicrousy of it, the terror of it, it falls away. So what I'm really thrilled about is the threshold that human beings have crossed over. And for those of you who have been with me even before my kids were born, or shortly after, you remember me. You may not remember what I said, but you remember the conversations I had. And those conversations were dominant at that time. They weren't even considered that real. But I was forecasting, I was prophesying, I was foretelling. And now here we are. And now we're here. And we've crossed a threshold as a species. And I do really believe there'll be enough people that stop identifying in relationship to the world around them, stop identifying with their relationships, stop identifying with their circumstances, stop identifying with the culture. And I do believe the seed of the psyche is rising in the human identification system. You can quote me. I do see that now. And it's exciting. It's really exciting. So when I woke up this morning and I was remembering what Dr. White said about I could have several psychologies, because I had several aspects of capacity, I had several aspects that, I'm going to put it kind of funny, work the world. And so as I began to recognize them, and it's like you would never think weird of a football player that shifted from hugging his kids and kissing his wife and driving to the football field in his car, stepping out on the grass and becoming a football player. A shift in his psyche, a shift in his sense of identification, a shift in his behavior, a shift in his mind. You never think anything about that. Why is it so hard to think that you're not just the history of yourself, but that you're so much more? In fact, the history of yourself is just like going into, I'm sorry what I'm about to say, it'd be like going in a dirty train station and identifying it as your home. It's just a location in time and space that yourself traveled into. Beautiful. So the other thing that happened out of last night's call was realize that I could smell, taste, sense, touch, feel, hear the multidimensional natures with me on the call. And there was this thrill going on, this unspeakable something that was going on. And I realized this morning that's what it was. That I noticed Ann Burns said shapeshifter. It was as if we'd shape-shifted into our multidimensional natures And our multidimensional natures were the listening. So friggin' cool. I'm spellbound by it. I'm totally, now you know me, I'll go to work. I always go to work. I always go to work because it's so much fun. It's like if the earth was art and we were art and we were all artists, and seeing a creative idea start to happen, a creative expression start to happen, and you just wanted to see it full blown, and you just dig into it until you were part of it and it was part of you, and others were part of the expression of it. And it's really why this year, probably the next 6 years for me, my mantra is want to play. Because we can again. More and more. More and more. We just can. Yep. And I don't know about the other part. I don't know if some of us will slip on the banana peel or some of us will get caught in the mudslide. I don't know those things. I'm not paying attention there anymore. There's plenty of people paying attention to that. I don't need to pay attention to it. I prefer to pay attention to the new ground that's forming. So there's a couple of things I want to share regarding that. So I'm doing this new body of work that is totally distinct from anything I've ever done before, because human beings are capable for self-study and self-training. But they do need a gym. And frankly, I think I make a decent gym. And GYM, I wouldn't want our man Jim to think I meant him, although I'd be all right with that too. So there are two very fundamental kind of collective principles that let's do this like imagination. So let's imagine we didn't do any of the things we think have been done here. Let's imagine something else happened until something eroded it. Something maybe we forgot. And what happened was that these beings that now look like us, these beings formed the same way fairies and nature spirits and the ethers and the primal forces formed. They formed to tend to the Garden of Eden. They were like children that would be raised in the garden. I'm using metaphors, so don't even go religious on me. They were children that were raised in the Garden of Eden to tend to the garden. How did they tend to the garden? Loving it, playing in it, enjoying it. And out of that, some things matured in what we now call the human psyche. Trying to do this in a short version of imagination. We discovered magic. Human beings discovered magic, that they carried that within them connections to the elements, a connection to the nature spirits, connection to everything, animals, water, wind, air, fire. It's what we call shamans nowadays, as a separate entity. But let's just imagine we're back at the beginning, and that as we matured, we began to love our paradise. And as we loved our paradise, we loved being the magic of it, called magi. I'm magi. We love being the magic of it. So this sort of gym, this sort of psychic gym, is like a gym for restoring this magic that, if we're getting our party back, we probably should make sure we're ready for it. So that was one very fundamental archetype of when the reality of unity that this earth is formed from still carries. It's just part of the human system aberrated. For the next reason. So then as we matured, we weren't just kids anymore. It was just part of our natural, Anne Byrne could do this so much better than me. I'm trying to channel Anne Byrne now. But we began to be the children of paradise, loving paradise and tending to it, because that's what you do when you're whole, complete, fulfilled, and satisfied. You don't rape it. You don't destroy it. You don't abuse it. You make sure it and you stay in harmony, balance, symmetry, and proportion. But the part that's so hard to get, and your stomach might even go flippy, is we forgot how to do this. We forgot this. And when we forgot it, we lost our magic. And then we're trying to get it back as people becoming environmentalists and activists. My daughter's like one of the original children of the garden, I can tell you. But the part we're forgetting is we just got to go back to be what we were in the garden, which were playing with creation and the magics of connection with all the different aspects of creation we were a part of. So that's like a very foundational piece, human magic. Someone asked me on the call we did this past Wednesday what I held magic to be. And I can't define it. So I just expressed it. Because it's no way to describe it. It's something that you are, not something you can have. It makes a very big difference. It's like when somebody says, "What are you?" and you can't answer. I think the answer should be, "I'm magic." Just feel it. Feel what it does to your gut. Don't worry about that you have a long history, and humanity has a long history of not being able to comprehend this, not being able to return our cellular restoration memory to this. Don't worry about it. We're rising. We're rising. What is that song? I just remember the chariot coming. I love that song. It's an old gospel song. I'll have to, if it starts coming up through me, I'll pop a note to it. And then but as time formed, there became at the etheric level, because when you're the children of creation, when you're in the garden of creation, it isn't just planetary, it's cosmic. It's where we know lots of the stories. It's where, like the Egyptian pharaohs in the beginning were cosmic beings that came into form. We think a lot of the deitic gods, as human beings call them, were simply cosmic natures that came into form, found a way to be here in form. We think, yes, that's it. That's it. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Here on earth, on earth. And I know we're struggling. I got a knee that doesn't work, and my adorable C is going through her stuff. We're all going through stuff. But we're like in a kind of gigantic detox right now, detoxing the reality that we've been swimming in all this time. Let it be. Oops, I feel another song coming on. Let's see how I go. But the point is, this was the pervasive first psychology of human being. I'm magi. I am magic. But it wasn't magic like an identification or a role or a capacity, because we were in the magic of creation. I tell this story, you all have heard it forever, because this stuff isn't easy to talk, and we're born into a paradigm of only think through your two ears, between your two ears, through your mental mind. It just took all the thrill out of everything. But I tell this story about two beings that were busy playing with each other, and all of a sudden these things shifted around them, kind of like what we would call color, and then things flew by, like things we would call birds, and then these things sort of rose in the air, sort of like clouds and what we might call trees. And then finally they were just exhausted from playing, and they fell to this nice, moist, furry, almost what we might call ground and moss. And one looked at the other and said, "Oh my goodness, did we have anything to do with that?" Yes, we remembered. We remembered. We remembered paradise at a cellular level. And I'm telling you, I want to stick around long enough. I don't know if I will, but boy, I get a big wanna about it. I want to stick around long enough to see this. I already see it, by the way. You couldn't have missed it last night on the call. It was amazing. When we think of multidimensional selves, so often human beings think of it as an escape from this reality. It is. It's just not out there. It's here. Escaping into, back into what we're designed to be. In other words, paradise lives inside you, in your cellular memory, in your cellular memory. And then at some point, that which was not aligned with the nature of this planet and its paradise began to become, give itself a place here. And so there was an element of human being. I'm talking at the psychological level. I'm not, and I mean, and for those of you that just came on, I mean back what we defined it as in the beginning of the chat. The chat in these calls are just as, the comments in these calls are equally, if not more important than what I say. It's very beautiful, this shared field. I'm one of those. Usually I think they were probably cosmological beings. My sense is, because what got manipulated here was duality, the balance of life here, the balance between light and dark, the balance between destruction and creation and construction, which is a very fundamental element of this planet and very much part of its natural system, and what allowed cosmic beings able to exist here and leave and exist here and leave over a period of time, because they couldn't stay here all the time, because they'd have to follow the rules. And the rules are you have to die, go back into the mulch, and have something be reborn out of you. And but for a long time, we could stay above that. We could stay without damaging or hurting her principles here. And but some of us became guardians at the gateway. We were capable of not being cost our memory. We were capable of remembering paradise. We didn't lose it in our remembrance. And because we could keep that register within us, as things began to go crazy here, we could keep mitigating the effect. Now, I'm going to say something that's so hard to be in a medium of belief and truth, not just imagination and sensory response. But that which doesn't belong here is on the run. It's on the run, and it usually gets pretty fierce. Things get pretty fierce when you're trying to get them out the gate and they don't belong in there. But there is some of us that can tend to the gate as guardians and wish them well and wish them safe journey home and thank them for leaving. There are those of us that can do that. So it's so amazing to me. I'll be 75, 3/4 of a century. Next Friday, I'll be doing Facebook Live on my birthday. And that the thing I have been participating in for centuries has finally crested through the crust of the human psyche. Because we're the return. We're the resurrection. Our remembrance. Our reclaiming. And particularly our ability to remember ourselves right. It's interesting, I got 2 texts this morning from very, very powerful consultants. And they were really wrestling with, is it me? Am I the reason things aren't working? Am I thinking I'm not capable enough? And just be careful of that. It's part of the degradation of the human psychology. It's part of the degradation of our playing field with ourselves. Go into what you love, what you enjoy. That was the other thing. I have to go back and try to rewrite it. There was one section in I'll complete with this part. There was one section in this chapter, Sentient Intelligence. And it was beautiful because everybody identified it, or not everybody, everybody identified it and several people addressed it. This fundamental memory that occurs at the first and second dimension of human creation. And what I'd written was that our sense of self, our identity plane of human being, is unconscious there. But we think unconscious is bad. But we forgot that even if we're unconscious, we're part of an extraordinary system of paradise. It's tending to us all the time. So I didn't realize how locked and loaded that first and second dimensional realm is in the human psyche. Because just imagine if we don't even trust the fundamental beginning of ourselves, which was basically the principles of the universe, that the quarks are yes, Liz, but you have to make sure that you can't make yourself feel inferior without your consent, which gives the question, who is the you that tells the other parts of you that they don't get to make you feel inferior? Don't look outside, because the only reason you can hear it from another is you've already heard it in yourself. So I didn't realize the fundamental break, the matrix break. And some of you might get, I don't know if you'll get this, but I want to get it said. I didn't realize it last night when we were in this one paragraph, which totally transmitted, but that the language was gone. There was no language I could bring. I had to use transmission in that paragraph because I couldn't bring language to something that I really feel and felt I should have brought language to. But you have to realize I live in this language that can only language what's whole, complete, fulfilled, and satisfied. The language of your being lives in a unified field of what we might call love. It doesn't live in a broken all over the place. It doesn't live in against or even for. It lives in being here. That's the best I can do. So I recognized this morning that, wow, for me even to formulate language for that paragraph about the first and second dimension, I was going to have to language it in a way that restored it. Whoa. That's all I got to say. Whoa. And that out of the resonant field in the conversation last night, I probably could, I hope, to be able to draw from, I'm going to listen to the recording again, especially that section, and just listen and listen till I can hear the shared field, the shared consciousness, and be able to recreate it into language, because it's this capacity I carry that if I can if I can language it, it languages itself back into existence. It does for all of us. That's why we do the creation templates, and that's why Electra and Liz and Victoria and Beryl work with the Institute. It's all about regenerating humanity's capacity for their language of creation. All about that. So that just fascinates me. And what is that first level of dimension? It's basically, let's just say, energy, an idea. Not an idea like a human idea, just, I don't have the papers with me. But, and the second dimension is the human body. It's what makes the body, actually. So it's kind of like from quarks, from the universe to a body. And that's where it got broken. That's where at the consciousness level, we don't need to be aware of it because it's doing its thing. And I know this because do you all ever wonder why you struggle and suffer? And I don't mean in the old paradigm. Why you struggle and suffer is because at the first and second dimension of your existence, that means your non-physical and then your physical self, body, they're not given up. They aren't a they, but the schematic of creation that you came from, it keeps tugging us back to our dimensionality, back to our fundamental state of dimensionality. Somebody make sure, and Praline, if you have it, I think you can post it on here, or somebody can. And that is these 13 dimensions by a woman named Indigo Insight. I don't agree with some of the darker stuff there, because that's just what, as I penetrated the field, was not the fundamental intelligence of the dimension. But all in all, she does a great job. She really does a great job. Maybe I should go in and quote her and edit her and leave out some of the things that I think are more now what's happened than how it was originally designed. I'll do that, and then I'll post it. Somebody gets to remind me. But the point is, just by seeing that last night, I realized we're at the fundamental break. And the fundamental break, can you trust what you were created by? Not a thing, not a God. I mean, the way we hold it. Because it was definitely a generating, organizing design of creation. But what if we got back to the trust of that? Wowsy. Not at a conscious level, because we can't do it at a conscious level. We can't. I don't think you could think yourself as the entire universe right now. And I don't think you could think yourself as a body right now and all its amazing complex mechanisms. We might be able to, but we're not talking about that today. But there's another aspect at a cellular level of registering that we are safe, registering they're a part of a larger creation, registering. And the mental mind doesn't do that. The sentient intelligence and the empathic response of you in creation does that. And on that complexity, in the nature of that complexity, in the nature of that opportunity to get it said, something for us to think, something that takes us past the break, past the wars, past the evils, past the harms, past the distortions, past the aberrations, where we're just free there, free to play again. I love you. I've so enjoyed today. I've so enjoyed seeing your faces and seeing your words and feeling your presence. Take precious care.